Thank you so much to everyone for being here. This is the first of what we hope to be a four-step series on hybrid intelligence. I'm Cornelia Walther. I've been working for 20 years with UNICEF in humanitarian operations around the world, then left, published a bunch of books about social change via individual transformation, and have become increasingly interested in aspirational algorithms and the potential of technology for positive social change at scale. Wrote about that in 2021 before ChatGPT became the name of every game. And I'm presently a senior fellow at the Wharton School and the School of Dental Medicine, working on prosocial AI in general and hybrid intelligence in particular. And this series, and I'm delighted and I'm very grateful to MIT So for putting such an amazing panel together, is to show that AI can have positive social impact, but that it's not going to happen by itself. And that a lot of the current hype about the gloom or the glory of AI is somewhat mistaken, in the sense that it's not the AI that is either the solution or the problem, but we come back to the old saying, garbage in, garbage out, or values in, values out. We can't expect the technology of tomorrow to live up to values that the humans of today are not living up to.
My background is in real estate. I've worked on all sides of the industry, in the nonprofit community sector, the public sector, and the private sector in private equity. My company is called Just Value, which I founded in 2022. That really brought together my experience in all of those facets throughout my career. So it's very community focused and social impact focused, but it leverages data and market insights that I really honed through working in the public sector and the private sectors. And specifically, my work in emerging markets. So the last job I had was at Emergent Capital Partners, where I led originations and strategy in emerging Asia, and really looking at the market failures and market opportunities created in emerging markets was a big piece of developing Just Value solutions. So in countries like Indonesia and other emerging markets, this problem of finding the right value or proving the right value is very persistent because of how opaque those markets are. And really, there's a lot of similarities when you look at emerging markets and US markets marginalized in marginalized communities. And so I found a lot of parallels there and really developed a hypothesis around systemic undervaluation in US communities. So our solution is a two-part solution, the first being an algorithmic model that identifies a more equitable value for homes in communities of color. And then the second is the way that we bring that value to market through a loan product that helps homeowners access that additional home equity, and then use loan funds to preserve and grow the value of their homes.
I am the co-founder of Adalat AI. Adalat means courtroom in multiple South Asian African languages. And we are a legal tech nonprofit that builds AI solutions for justice systems in India and the global South to end judicial delays and provide timely justice for all citizens. My journey to this point I started as a lawyer. I finished law school. I was very wide-eyed, idealistic, thought I would go to courts and fight for justice for the vulnerable. But very quickly realized when I got to courts that front-end justice is very difficult to achieve and the back-end systems are completely broken. Numbers, it'll take 300 years to clear this backlog in India right now of court cases. It takes on average over a decade to clear one single case by the entire system. while it's a very complex multidimensional problem, it became very apparent quickly that there are a series of clerical and process pain points in the system that slow down the processing of cases in courts and that create these backlogs. So I worked a little bit inside the government first with the Ministry of Law, with the Ministry of Finance, authored a few reports on how these delays and backlogs can be reduced. But they weren't acted upon as much. Government reports sometimes can be a little slow. And at the same time, the appetite for governance and technology in India was going up. There are pretty promising tech solutions like UPI, which is a payment system, biometric identification, that the courts were left behind. And at the same time, the AI revolution was happening, which was enabling a lot of tech. And Orgo will talk a little bit about that tech that made automating some of these process inefficiencies possible. And so that's how Adalat AI was born. It was to address those clerical pain points in the backend systems that slow the judges down. And to make this a little bit more specific, there are many process pain points. One in particular that we target is transcription, because as you can imagine, in a courtroom, nearly every word has to be written down, the cross-examinations, the oral arguments, and courts depend on stenographers. And there's a huge shortage of skilled stenographers in India. They either type very slowly and slow the courts down, or they are completely missing, in which case judges are writing manually by hand, creating that court record. And so we have built a legal speech-to-text transcription tool that automates that pain point so that everything is automated in the court system, is human supervised so that it has low error rates and is offered in multiple Indian languages and dialects so that it actually works for the citizens who are participating in the courts.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Michael. I'm an electrical engineer and also an entrepreneur. I have a cafeteria here in São Paulo, and I was selected in 2023 program. And we basically provide finance control using simple text messages for small entrepreneurs and using WhatsApp. So a small entrepreneur can just type like I sold 100 or I paid 200 in something else. We understand that, we classify using AI, no longer using OpenAI, no longer using none of those LLM models. We develop our own model, and we classify those entries into financial classifications, and we provide profit information, cash flow information, most saleable products, all the type of finance control that a small entrepreneur requires to control and manage their business.
So it seems like if one were to zoom it down to the key words, inclusion, justice, and the opposite of bias, seem to be like the key words that spring to my mind. And Argia, is that correctly pronounced? I'm also a lawyer, so I hear you correctly, and I went with the same illusion that, well, you put out the right rules and the people will do the right things. I went also with that into my studies, and then decided it's time for something else because the rules are just as good as the people who implement them. But with that, on the AI side, I guess my big question to all of you is, what are you the most excited about the latest evolutions, be that DeepSeek, but also what just was launched this weekend with deep research? I guess all of you have started before the latest models. So what makes you excited about this new acceleration?
Sure. I can kick us off. I think as an organization that works with courts and justice systems, as you can imagine, the setting is quite sensitive and confidential, right? We work with court data that others typically cannot access. And so as an organization, it's hard for us to work with third-party APIs that provide AI services, like the GPTs or the Geminis of the world, because we cannot send any data to those providers, right? We have to be completely independent and autonomous. And so we really depend on the open source community, and Argo, you should jump in here. And so the fact that a lot of these models are innovating in the open source space is thrilling for us, because we can then use them, download the models and the weights, and deploy them on our servers, actually leverage such sophisticated technology without running the risk of privacy or confidentiality violations. So for us, that's actually been very thrilling that we can ride the ecosystem a little bit and the innovations happening there while respecting the confidentiality and privacy needs of the courts, because we don't have to use APIs to leverage those services.
Yeah, that's very fair point. That was point number one that I was going to talk about as well. I think the fact that AI is largely getting democratized is of a lot of value to what we do. And the reason for that is everything that Utkarsh talked about. I think the second sort of larger picture that we're kind of approaching with these latest models and sort of latest technology is that we're getting closer, inching closer and closer every day to doing a wide variety of economically viable tasks. And especially in the legal sector, and especially in some of the developing countries, what we see is that legal work is a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of grunt work that needs manual labor force. And now one of the primary reasons for why a lot of backlog exists in these court systems in a lot of countries in the global south is because of a lack of skilled workforce to be able to do these legal tasks. These are dense tasks. These are highly automatable, but they require a certain degree of human supervision, and it also requires legal skills. I think with the advent of these newer reasoning models, one very exciting thing is that now a lot of the economically viable tasks for which you would have to rely on a human before can be automated. And that's a big strength for the industry we work in, because there is a huge shortage of people in general. So yeah, that'd be the second thing that I'm very, very excited about with respect to DeepSeek and all of the reasoning models that are open source now.
And if I can just ask one follow-up question. So having read about DeepSeek, are you not concerned about the data and the fact that data is not protected in the same way as it is under some of the bigger models like OpenAI and others?
Yeah, I can underscore the slightly technical difference that Utkarsh and I are talking about, and that probably you are talking about. So DeepSeek is hosted out of the box by China as well. They are actually not the servers we are talking about, because that would lead to privacy risk concerns. As Utkarsh was mentioning, we actually can't send the data to any third party. What that means is all the models that we build have to be built in-house. And as a non-profit, it's always a challenge to hire the best tech talent, because we are fighting with the Googles and Metas of the world to hire the best tech talent to build these models. But the fact that people are coming out now, open sourcing the work that they're doing, the methodology, the models, the weights, is of huge value to us, because this sort of gives us a seat in the rocket ship of reasoning models getting better, which we would have been left out of if we had to hire the same sort of talent, gather the compute, and build these models ourselves from scratch.
So Cornelia, specifically to your question, what that means is we don't use the DeepSeek API, we use the DeepSeek open source model. So they also have an open source version of the model. We download that. It's a little bit like Llama, and then deploy it and run it on our systems. And that part of the DeepSeek innovation is very exciting. We don't have to lean on the APIs that send data to China. We take the model, deploy it on our servers, and run them in India.
Fabulous. Michael, Sharu, anything you want to add on your excitement about the new AI acceleration?
Well, when you are training models, specifically for frequent asked questions, something that you are not expecting for the customers, those models came up with a very sophisticated engineering stuff. So you can help you to provide a better answers to the final customer, and can help you to make a kind of a third way of, okay, I'm classifying text. I'm a basic classifier. So I have two algorithms to classify. I can have a third one in order to, okay, what's the best one? So all of them are classifying the same way. And when you have this now open source mode, when you can use it for Llama, for instance, I'm using Llama. I'm considering to use Llama in my future developments here. So this is really helpful in order to reduce our costs and provide better answers to the final customer.
Sharu?
I could add something to this conversation. I think that what really excites me about the AI entering the social zeitgeist as well as sort of the becoming commercially viable, is that it's really elevating the level of conversation we're having within society so that consumers are thinking about AI. They're comparing different AI services and seeing how they work for them. And I think this brings, first of all, that's an important acumen that has to be developed within the consumer base, within our society, being able to discern quality in the use of AI generally. And part of using quality AI is knowing that it is not biased against you. So I think one of the things that's very exciting to a company like ours, Just Value, is that there is greater language and more granular understanding about how disparity and biases can be embedded in all technological solutions, any solution that uses data. AI is one type of those, and because it's sexy and fun, that's really where all the attention has gone as to how biases can be embedded in there. But frankly, it exists in every platform that uses data. So I think that's actually one of the more interesting things that's happening with AI, that we are having more in-depth conversations about the brass tacks of how bias gets embedded in those solutions, in their outputs. And I hope the next step is, how does that bias impact our everyday lives? I don't think our conversation has yet stepped into that sphere.
Yeah, picking you up on that one, taking into the whole consideration now the advent of agents. Any thoughts that any of you might have about where this might go next, but also how agents can play a role in the context of what you're doing?
I am currently studying agents, so I already developed some agents here. They are fantastic. So it's really impressive, the outcomes that they provide in much less effort from our side. But of course, you should pay attention what exactly are you asking for, which kind of data are you sending to them in order to come back some few answers. So in our concern, in our environment here, for the future release, we are not considering to send personalized data. So we are just unpersonalizing the data. So the model will not understand from where these come from, of which kind of people are using that. But they are really helping us in order to understand more further questions, because users sometimes they are providing questions to you. You are preparing your model, training your model with some specific question that you think that's absolutely the complete possibilities. How do you cover all the complete possibilities? And no, they don't have. So agents on that time can help you to sophisticate your answer, providing answers that you are not possibly imagining, and you are just merging all the tools that you already developed. So because you can add some tools that you already developed into that answer in that full algorithm in order to provide a better answer to the customers. It's a really valuable tool, agents, but of course, just pay attention which kind of data are you sending and receiving.
Next on agents, I think it's super exciting. The way that I like to think about agents is, back in 2017 or 16, one of the ways in which we were thinking about what AI can do or the capabilities of AI was to think in terms of how many seconds of thinking does it take a human to do the same task? Let's say if you were to tell if an image is that of a cat or a dog, you'd take less than a second to kind of think about it. And those were the sort of models that we had initially. Over time, over the last decade, I think what we've been able to do is kind of extend the time that a human needs to think to do a task and be able to automate those using AI. And agents is the first promising framework of extending this idea infinitely. It could extend to, let's say, 1 year of thinking and then coming up with a solution as well. It's just about throwing more compute. So that is a very, very exciting thing. And the reason why it's exciting is most of, at least in our industry, most of the economically viable tasks, and I'll just take one example, leading a very lengthy oral argument, which would be, let's say, spanning 5-10 hours, and then coming up with the final contentions of the petitioner, the final contentions of the respondent. This is a very dense legal task, and it might require one or more humans. But now with agents, these sort of tasks can be automated, and these are the economically viable tasks. So I think for me, the most exciting thing is we're finally at the frontier where thinking, which was what we used to pay for to humans to do tasks, can now be automated using machines. And that might alleviate the need for humans where there is a shortage. So that to me is the most exciting thing about agents.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Uh, I just want to jump in and say one thing that, while DeepSeek and ChatGPT and agents is all really, really exciting in the nonprofit space, especially in the global south, I think the world's talking a lot about the cutting edge frontier of the innovation, which is happening so quickly. But there's a lot of innovation that's been productionized that still needs to reach the global south and in public systems. So, for instance, our tech is speech to text transcription, right? Image to text OCR scanning. A lot of these have also become viable, more economical. That I'm much more excited not about in the global south sort of nonprofit space, not just about the really exciting generative AI innovations that are happening, but also the kind of non-generative AIs that are enabling process efficiencies in countries with low state capacity, with low sort of shortages of talent and labor, and enabling those systems to work better, which is very exciting for the problem space we work in.
I have to support what you're saying, Utkarsh, because I think that even the simplest forms of AI have a lot of runway in the social impact space. I agree with you. I don't think we have at all mined the opportunity to use that type of technology to address all kinds of problems that impact companies and organizations face. And labor is certainly chief among them. And so whether it's even the simplest ones, I think have the ability to broaden the engagement and footprint and deepen the work of social impact organizations. And we're nowhere near being able to fully exploit those solutions.
And I think the both of you are touching on a very important point, which is we're getting so excited about AI, and it seems to be everywhere and in every single forum and conversation right now. But it's just a fraction of humanity that is actually touched by AI. And there are a couple of billion people out there who not only are not interested in the latest AI model, but also who don't have electricity, clean water, safe food, and other more basic concerns of survival. So I think that is also something very important to keep in the discussion when we are talking about the future of AI. So thank you for bringing that up. Maybe another aspect and thinking about those who might be listening to this. So the logic of prosocial AI is AI systems that are tailored, trained, tested, and targeted to bring out the best in and for people and planet. And I think all of you have been working on something amazing to make that happen. And I was wondering, what would be your recommendation to whoever is listening to this, whoever might be reading whatever article I'm going to write? I think what would be your key aspects, maybe the things that surprised you the most when you started to get into the field of prosocial AI?
Are you asking this for in terms of startup in point of view, or so for a person who is starting a business?
Sorry, I'm not following.
Are you asking this as a perspective of a person who is starting a business using AI or considering to use AI?
You're welcome to take this whichever way you want. I think the main topic is really how can we make the best out of AI for people and planet?
I mean, one thing that I learned over and over again in my business is that every piece of technology, whether it's AI or whether it's some other data science that we use in our solution, that, these approaches, it's like a car, right? It's a piece of technology that you use, but it's only as good and as useful as the one who is driving the vehicle or using that technology, which is to say that when you're developing an AI-based product, there are 1 million decisions to be made. And each of those decisions has a consequence on the output. And those are unique to the acumen of those who are developing that piece of technology or that solution. So I think it's really important to know that when we are using technology, which looks very sleek, it looks very complete, it's actually a compilation of a lot of human decisions and a lot of human preferences and priorities that went into how to design, how to use that technology to design the product you're using. That's number one. Number two, what I'm seeing in the industry is among practitioners, especially probably young people entering the field, is a jump towards all the fun stuff, right? Like all the machine learning, all the AI, without having a very strong foundation in how data works and how to utilize it with discipline, how to interrogate it with discipline, and how to bring real domain experience to the interrogation of that data. And that means like you're giving somebody without a license the keys to the car. Yes, you get the car can move, but is it producing anything of any utility? Probably not, is what I've learned. And instead, you're getting something that's actually pretty dangerous because its packaging looks very complete, but the way that it operates, the outputs that it provides are wrong, really are wrong. And so I think that the fears around AI replacing humans, right? Like my kids are, I have young kids who say, you know, AI robots are going to replace all humans. That's not quite what's going to happen. But what it does mean, it is increasingly going to replace some roles, absolutely. But it also means that those who are using them on the consumer side and those who are building them have to be much more specific and I think well-versed in how to frame a question, interrogate it, and then build a solution around it.
That's a perfect point. So this have a strong foundations behind the scenes in order to build, in order to understand what is happening behind the scenes. And also when you are having the result, the outcome, so you should verify if the data is really valuable. So sometimes you get answers completely out of sense. So depending how you are asking or how your prompt is based, the answers can be completely out of sense to your final customer. So you should try that. You should understand the basics in order to provide the better answers to your audience. This is really important.
Do you have any practical example? Any practical example from terrible things that went wrong or fantastic outcomes that you got? Can be both.
Well, I'm start considering using LLMs into my system because we develop our own. And during our test here, so we have basically understanding of comments. So when people are typing a message, I should understand that is as a comment. So which kind of comment is the outcome? And when doing agent using AI and Olama, for instance, they are creating comments. So I already provide a specific comment. This is the comment list. They are not only side-sided, they are creating comments that no longer exist in our example, in our sample. So you should pay attention to that. But at the same time, when you provide a database with the numbers from a specific customer, for instance, they are asking, okay, can you give me all the payments that you proceed in the last 7 days? 7 days, for instance. We are not longer considering a specific tool or function to that 7 days, but they can do as an agent, going to the database and collecting this exactly, providing the exactly answer that the customer is asking for. So you have the bad part, you have the good part. So you just need to train and understand what is happening behind the scenes.
Peru, Utkarsh, anything you want to add? Argia?
Yeah, I have so many thoughts while everyone was speaking, but I'm a lawyer and economist, and there are two things that the law part and the econ part of my brain think about a lot. On the law part, I think, whenever tech innovates, the law has to catch up in its regulatory role. And it's always hard to catch up with tech innovation. But with the pace at which tech is innovating today, I think that gap worries me. And I think how regulations are going to catch up to ensure that this is implemented, as Charu was talking about, in a safe way, is going to be of concern and something that I think we have to think about a lot. And on the econ side, as I think someone else mentioned in terms of jobs, again, there is a kind of transition period that you go through when new technology comes in, makes certain sectors irrelevant, and there are migrations that happen of labor. But that takes time. Even, I mean, if you think about, the Midwest or the north of UK, which created kind of specific movements, it was because we didn't allow some kind of transition periods for industries that became irrelevant. And that's happening so much faster now that I'm worried about how quickly the system will be able to cope and adjust with that. On a specific example that I think that I worry about, these two things aside, is, I think human supervision is still very critical and needs to be in the human loop with AI tech. And as tech gets better and better, my concern is that we will get lazier and lazier in our supervision because we will assume that it's already done things well. And in a legal setting, in a justice setting, that's of serious concern to me. So when we have speech to text transcription solutions in the early days today, when it's still it's improving, there are still errors, everybody's on alert and scrutinizing every word, every punctuation mark, as they should, because legal outcomes turn on punctuation marks. But as things get better, is there a chance that human supervision goes down that makes some errors, possibility of errors sneaking into judicial records go up? And then how do we think about systems to prevent that? So constantly thinking about how do you build human supervision into these solutions to ensure that there's thorough diligence and review before we accept AI outputs.
I think that's a really important point, which comes back to agency decay and the fact that human beings are lazy. And if we can delegate cognitive effort or any effort whatsoever, then we so willingly embrace that opportunity. And it's a very slippery slope to experimenting with AI, using it regularly, and eventually depending on it and trusting it. And that piece of the trust that you also mentioned in regards to supervision, that is, I think, the piece that we proactively and systematically need to prevent.
Yeah.
Are there any personal user cases, like any cases where you remember somebody who used your system and who was like, this is changing my life? Anything of that sort?
I do have. I do
I'm
have.
sure you have several.
I have a plenty of people, small entrepreneurs who are no longer controlling their finances. When they see something using WhatsApp, WhatsApp in Brazil is really used a lot. So 99% of mobile phones here use WhatsApp. And when they notice that they can use simple text message and controlling their finances, they got, this is real, this is real, this is really happening. Yeah, this is really happening. Via WhatsApp, yeah, via WhatsApp. So you can use it. So it's really happening. So it's a game changer for finance control. Of course, we are not changing the habits. We still need to understand how to change the habits. But the technology barrier or the knowledge barrier, okay, I do not understand nothing about finance. I no longer are a friend of, we are no longer friends of Excel or spreadsheets. We can overcome this, but we cannot overcome the habits. But at least the technological part, we can fix it.
I can go next. So I think we've had a couple of instances. It's one of my favorite instances is so a judge in Andhra Pradesh, which is a state in India. We were just having a conversation with them, and they were telling us about what their typical workload in a day is like. And they told us that on any particular given day, they record 2 to 3 evidential hearings, which is essentially a witness, or let's say the victim comes in to depose about the case that they're that concerns them, and everything is recorded. Questions are asked, and it's recorded. And before Adalat AI, judges told us that they were able to do 2 or 3 a day. And after Adalat AI, that number is anywhere between 9 to 12. So that's 4 times the number of witness hearings and evidential depositions that were being done. So this is a direct improvement, multifold improvement in the productivity of these judges in courtrooms, which would downstream lead to more cases being resolved and more people sort of getting timely access to justice. So that would be my example. Utkarsh, you can probably share your favorite example too.
No, I think that captures it. I think the fact that something as simple as transcription and speech to text solution, which we kind of take for granted on our WhatsApp and on our mobile phones, when specifically customized for legal language and deployed in courts, can unlock so much productivity. Feels like magic sometimes. It is very powerful, and the fact that we can also serve low resource languages, underrepresented languages, and take such technology to more remote parts of the country is very exciting.
Jeru, anything you want to chip in?
Sure. I think for me, the real sort of, I think, aha moment in terms of the daylighting just value is able to do came through a series of conversations, first with banks, where I really had to walk through every single part of our solution and explain to them why this is good for them. And so, that would be a 15-minute conversation. And then I would speak with homeowners in our pilot neighborhood. And there I would only have to say 1 or 2 sentences. And then the homeowner would give me the rest of my pitch back to me. It was just so profound, this yawning gap in understanding of the problem, that your average resident in a community of color so well understood the problem that I'm addressing and even saw the impact that our solution can make in a way that they explained it better than I can. And then on the commercial side, working with the lenders who are meant to serve them to really have to connect the dots because their experience is completely missing in the data set. So it's it's a complete absence of that market in their portfolio, and banks not really recognizing that this is a missed opportunity for them. And whereas the consumer knows it, but has no outlet in which to engage with lenders. So to me, that was really profound. And when I have too many difficult conversations with lenders, I make sure I remember the conversations I have with homeowners.
Sorry, I just wanted to pull back on one of the threads we were discussing about what is something that we want people to know about using AI, which is sort of the previous topic. And I just wanted to second Charu's opinion there about the car example. I think that's sort of the perfect example because the car matters, how to drive the car matters, and hence who's the driver. And then we talked a little bit about Utkarsh, and I think Mikhail talked about the fuel, which is the data, and making sure that the fuel is just the right. And I just love to add one experience that I've had with AI. It's also very important to know when to drive the car versus when to walk versus when to take a cycle. What I see, one of the risks, and this is a very common pattern that we see, is people tend to throw too much at AI now. The simplest of problems that exist, AI is being thrown at. So another sort of important thing about the balance is also to know when to take your car out and when it's sort of, the best idea to have a car which can sort of pollute the environment, be out and about to do a particular task versus when it's much better and economically viable to sort of walk. So that would be sort of my closing remarks on that.
Yeah, so very true. If there would be one thing, as we're moving towards the end, if there would be one thing that you could wish for the future as it unfolds. Like you have the magic cup, you have the Harry Potter charm. What do you wish for?
I would say AI for the global south. I think a little bit like in drug innovation, a lot of the resources are being directed to solve problems that are more related to those of the global north, but there's a lot of stuff that AI can help with in the global south. And I wish there are more resources, whether it's the languages that we speak, our dialects, our specific problems being addressed. Is something that I wish we could enable more as a society.
And I'll lump the U.S. marginalized communities into the global South, gosh, because so many of the metrics around the performance of those individuals and those neighborhoods are very similar to many cities and countries in the global South. Those are communities that have been completely left behind here in the U.S. So I agree 100%. And I think something that's sort of like a sleeper problem that is not discussed very much, because when we talk about AI and tech, we're speaking from the perspective of creators, and rarely from the perspective of users for whom solutions have yet to be developed. And one thing that I hear pretty consistently from people in communities of color and other marginalized communities here in the US is a deep distrust of AI. So we've got this this paradox, because I'm certain their lives are, as all of our lives are affected by AI every day in a variety of different ways in which we interact with society, interact with work. And yet, I don't think we yet have the acumen to fully interrogate those solutions and know that AI is embedded in our everyday tools, number one. And number two, we don't have a language and even the guidelines for developing solutions in a way that communities that have rightfully earned distrust can start to trust. And so what I find is that it can be hard to bring along other social impact organizations because they are so far away from being ready to adopt tech solutions designed for them. And so I think this is one of the things that I find in my conversations. I think regulation is a big piece of building trust, and we're far, far away from that, to underscore a point that was made earlier. And we're probably going to see solutions that take advantage of marginalized people quite a bit before we see any relief on that side. So, you know, I guess what I look forward to is building consumer acumen around how to interrogate AI tools and helping them develop their demands for how they want the transparency to be communicated to them about those tools.
I would say that we are no longer using more than 20% of the potential of AI, currently AI tools. So in order to have a full potential usage of that, you should programming, you should understand the behind the scenes, you should understand what the basic concepts that a specific LLM is using. So is quite far away from people nowadays to usage. So people are just using in a simple way. Okay, provide me a text, provide me an email message, provide me something more polite to write, but we can do much more with this. And in order to achieve that, we should be the LLMs, all those models should be much more understandable. So people people are afraid of using that. So they are afraid and they are not understanding the full potential that they can achieve with AI. So we are path ahead of us in order to have the full potential usage.
I entirely agree. And maybe to go to that point, we need to invest more systematically in double literacy, which is on the one hand, a more holistic understanding of self and society, and on the other hand, algorithmic literacy, not just what is the latest model, but also how it works and why it works the way it does. And that is maybe also a takeaway for governments and for policymakers, and generally speaking, that we start to rethink our education systems and the mindsets that will be using AI in the future. Thank you so much. And I think with that, we're coming exactly to the top of the hour. So thank you very, very much for joining, everyone. Thank you very much for MIT Solve for putting such an amazing panel of people together. Bye, everyone.